Now, if we want to select these shapes individually that I've created on the ellipse layer here, then I can use the shape selection tool. So different to the move tool up here, I have the shape selection tool and my direct selection tool, which we'll come to a little bit later. But the path selection tool allows me to select individual shapes and I can move these around now. Okay, they're moving on the same layer. These different shapes on the same layer will have the same color property. So if I click on a color here and change the fill, it's going to change it for all shapes on that layer. So this is where one of the kind of key differences comes in between Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. So we have our shapes here located on the same layer. And so if we want to do alignment for particular shapes, we have to do that in the same layer, or we're doing the normal alignment. And so there are some differences between doing alignment for an individual layer of shapes and shapes on different layers. And we'll come to that a little bit later on. If I hold down the Alt key here and drag, it's going to create a duplicate of those layers. And if I hold down Shift, I can select those different circles that I've just created and come up and use the align tools. So I've aligned the vertical centers, and now I can distribute the widths for those shapes in that ellipse layer that I've just created. So you can see how we can select layers, how we can create layers, how we can create shapes on different layers in Adobe Photoshop, or multiple shapes in the same layer. So there's some useful tools that we have here for working with shapes. So let's move on now to look at how we can begin to modify some of these shapes in Adobe Photoshop.